Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Welcome to Hong Kong Confidential. I'm Jules Hannaford and I'm your host. I'm an Australian woman and I've been living in Hong Kong for many years. I'm a mother, a teacher, an author, and I want to share my wisdom and the wisdom of others with you. Thanks for joining me and I hope you enjoy the show. Today I'm here with Aaron Stadler-Robbie. Hi, Aaron. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Aaron, tell me where you're from and how did you end up in Hong Kong?
Actually, I grew up here. My dad's from New Zealand, but we grew up here as a family. I've been here. My mum's from Hong Kong. So I was born in the UK and then we came over when I was 1. So Hong Kong's home,
Oh,
really.
right. So you're a Hong Kong kid.
I am.
Oh, wow. And what sort of kid were you? What were you like as a child?
No, what was I like as a kid? Yeah, I mean, I wasn't the best at school, but just I loved sports. Grew up playing sports. Grew up with 2 younger brothers. So in an area where we would always be outside. You know, having a Kiwi daddy's always wanted us to be outside, which was a flip side from what my mum wanted, where she wanted us at home. We weren't any of that. So mum wasn't very happy with how we were academically, but
Because you're out playing sport all the time and not studying.
correct. Yeah.
And so you've been living in Hong Kong and you're a rugby player in Hong Kong. How long have you been playing rugby here?
Oh, I've been playing rugby since I was 6 or 7, and it was more for dad just to get us out of the house. He wasn't into rugby or anything. It was just more getting us out of the house. And we've always played, but I've never played on a, really serious level. It's just more social and play with the university rugby team over here. It's a good level. It's like just the perfect balance between competitive and social. So I've been playing rugby for a while, I guess.
And would you class yourself as a sort of a macho kind of guy, or would you class yourself more as soft, gentle, kind of
Definitely
big teddy
more.
bear kind of guy?
Yeah,
Which way do you
love my
think you are?
snuggles. No, not much. I've never really been that. I don't think, not macho. I guess, I love snuggling down. And then again, I love a good hit up at rugby. So I mix of both.
So you mix of both. Yeah,
Mix of both, I guess.
That's kind of what I thought you'd say.
Okay.
Aaron, you've been becoming sort of a bit of a media star, doing a couple of interviews about having anxiety. Can you tell me a bit about when you first realized that something wasn't quite right?
Yeah, it's been 6 years ago. I was living up in Shanghai. And it was my first panic attack. It hit me when I was walking on the street with my family after breakfast or something, and just boom, hit me real hard. And that was the first time I ever experienced a panic attack. Up until that, I never was dealing with anxiety because I kind of separate anxiety and panic attacks.
Because they're kind of two different things, but they're related, but they're quite different, aren't they?
Correct. So if you look on any kind of mental health website, it's grouped as one. So it's like anxiety and panic attacks. It's what causes the panic attack. So I've been dealing with it for about 6 years.
What was your first panic attack like? What were the physical and emotional symptoms?
Oh, it was the scariest experience I've had in my life. Yeah, for sure. It's hard to describe. There's no preparation to it. So it just hit me like hitting a wall that I wasn't looking at. So I couldn't see it coming.
So it didn't even creep up on you. It just started and it went.
Well, to my knowledge at the time, I didn't see anything coming. Looking back at it now and talking to a few people, it's like,
Oh, so there were a few warning signs that you overlooked.
0. Yeah, I had no clue. So it just hit me. And it's literally like if you cross the road and you almost get hit by something or just that initial fear, it was like that, but for no reason, nothing. It was just walking on the street. And it felt like I was like, okay, something's really wrong. I'm about to faint. I have a heart attack. It felt like that. It felt like I've never been so afraid in my life. And I couldn't figure out what was
going on. So you were worried you were going to have a heart attack, perhaps,
yeah,
or that
it's
there's
exactly
something physically wrong with you.
My heart was going. Something was wrong. I
and
knew
did it feel
was
pain?
Wrong.
Was it physical pain?
No, That was the weird thing. There was no physical pain. There was nothing to have caused it, but it was something had caused the scariest moment of my life.
See, that's so interesting because I've been suffering recently from a bit of anxiety myself that came on just this year related to me writing the book that I've written and just published.
Oh, wow.
Now that that's over, I can feel the anxiety going away and I'm doing stuff to help it go away. So it was really situational, but I've never had a panic attack. So I don't know what it's like. So the way you've explained it really makes sense because I have had those moments like in a car crash. You know, that quick fear and then your heart's pounding. And now that you've said that, that kind of makes me have a bit of a parallel with that kind of feeling.
Yeah. I mean, I had an interesting conversation recently with a woman who was dealing with clinical depression. We were just having a chat and it was just quite interesting to hear what happens with her as what happens with me and the kind of a light switch. It happens that fast. And she was like, oh, I've never heard of that before, you know, which again is another topic in mental health where people just lump everything in as one problem, which it isn't. But the panic attack itself, it's the scariest thing that's ever happened. And it's just so bizarre. And it can last for about 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. You just don't know.
At the time, you didn't recognize it as a panic attack. So what did you do? Did you go and see a doctor? Did you just push it aside and hope it doesn't happen again? Or what happened?
The first one, it was completely fight or flight. So I was with everyone, but I didn't say anything. So I just went, okay. I remember trying to make a phone call to try and take my mind off of it, to just like, what's going on? Let's just ride it out. And then I remember just getting home and then going, let's just get to sleep, wake up and it'll be fine. Woke up, everyone had left the house already. I just didn't say anything. I woke up and then it hit me real hard again. And then I called my mate. I said, I'm coming over. I don't know what's wrong, but something's wrong. And I remember just making sure, like, just stay awake, get over to his house. Got there. I was like, bro, I don't know what's going on. Something's wrong. And I remember he was just like, that's, you know, it's fine. Just, you know, do you feel any pain? I was like, no. He's like, he gave me like a soft drink or something, a Coke or something. And he's like, just sit down, watch this movie. 20 minutes again went away. And I was like, man. And I was like, he's like, how you feeling? I was like, better. And I was like, I can't explain what this is. Like, I have no idea. So I went to the hospital in Shanghai and I think the doctors wanted to get me in and out because he was like, you've got he's like, do you drink? I was like, yeah. And he's like, oh, that's the problem. You have a thiamine deficiency, which is like a lack of vitamin B12. And he's like, don't drink and take these pills. I was like, all right, I guess it is. I guess it's that. That carried on. That following year, it kept coming back. The first few months, I was like, oh, I think I'm getting better. It's not happening as much. And then it just come back again. I'd be like, oh, this is not it. And then eventually spoke to my mom and she was like, oh, why don't you go speak to Jackie? He was actually her ex-student and he's a psychiatrist in Hong Kong. And I would literally sat down 5 minutes with him and he was like, oh, you have panic attacks. And it was like the biggest weight off my shoulders because he was the first person to talk to me. Everyone up to that point, families and friends would be like, what's wrong? They would ask because they wouldn't know. He was the first person that said, do you feel this, 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 and this? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, you have panic attacks. It's a chemical imbalance in your brain. He started making sense of it. And I was like, okay. And
you felt relieved to have this diagnosis because finally you knew what it was.
Right. But what was the biggest relief was how casually he talked about it in terms of, which was nice because it was like, the whole time I thought I was dealing this on my own, but he just made it seem like it was so common, and which I've now found out it is.
It's very common, isn't it? It's very common.
That was the first time I was like, okay, it kind of gave me that sense of, all right, I know what this is now.
And so how did he go about treating it?
Medication, a lot at the beginning. I was very lucky though. He's a family friend, so he never charged me for anything.
Oh, wow.
Which is incredible.
Well, it's great because it is expensive. It's expensive. To see psychiatrists
and this
in
is
Hong
an issue
Kong.
that I'm trying to also figure out as well. Is how you get around this. But we never had full sessions because of it. So if he was free, he'd just be like, come on in. We just do something really quick. And he'd be like, how you feeling? What's happening? And through these little small sessions, he ended up helping me a lot.
So you kind of had bits of therapy along the way, but it wasn't a good chunk of therapy. Did you see anyone else?
No.
Okay.
No. And it was also my ego at that point was like, okay, I think I know what it is. That's fine. I'll deal with it myself.
How was that as I'm just going to say 20-something male, but I have no idea.
No, you're
how
right.
old
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No, you were right. Back then, I was mid-20s.
That as a 20-something male finding out that you were having panic attacks?
It was weird. It was confusing. I was like, I didn't know why. They're so difficult to deal with that I didn't think about, how am I dealing with it? It was just, I need to get this to stop happening.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's why I just took the medication.
And did that work? Did that stop the panic attacks?
Yeah, it did. Yes, it did and it didn't. Actually, the medication did help. There was no side effects or anything like that. And I trusted Jackie and a lot of the stuff that he told me. We asked a lot of questions. So it was just my lifestyle choices at the time and with what was going on with my life at the time that caused massive panic attacks.
Do you mean staying up late, partying, not looking after yourself as well as you could, that kind of thing?
And at the time,
living that rugby lifestyle, I hate to say it. Is that stereotyping?
Yeah. No, it's true. I like being out and socializing. It's a big part of who I am. But the thing was, at the time, I got a job selling alcohol. That was the biggest problem. I would be selling hard liquor. So I'd be drinking so many days through the week, and we just had a kid.
Is that because you're networking, you're having to sell it, you have to drink with the people to, like, it's all part of the job kind of thing?
Anything with sales, right? You got to, like, believe in your product. And that means, like, drinking with bar managers. A lot of them in TST don't start and work until 7 or 8. And by the time they get in, they want to drink. I
bet your wife was not very happy about that with a new baby, and you were out doing that. That would have been tough.
At the time, it was the most amount of money that I've ever gotten. And it was a job that was paying for the bills. So yes, she wasn't happy about it.
But she appreciated it. Was
like, all right, I understand.
Yeah. But the drinking and the staying out late and not looking after yourself added to the panic attack?
Oh, massively. Oh, yeah. I mean, for sure. I mean, drinking helps. It helps with the panic attack. So when I'm drinking, it masks everything. It's brilliant, which is also the biggest danger as well, of course. So I know that, and that's also trying to figure out that balance.
And that's why people often self-medicate with drugs or alcohol, don't they? Because it's a way of numbing that pain or that fear or that anxiety so that they push it aside rather than dealing with it head on.
Anxiety and panic attacks is tiring, exhausting. Having to deal with it, especially when you don't know what's going on, is exhausting. So drinking, it allows all of that to go away. So it's actually, why wouldn't you, in a way? You know, it's such a relief, you know, because back then I didn't know what it was. I kind of knew, Jackie was kind of telling me about it, but I didn't really think about it. I was just like, oh, it's a chemical imbalance. I'll take this medicine and just keep living your life.
You weren't kind of thinking about your lifestyle choices as well and how that might impact it.
No, I'm talking from hindsight right now. Right?
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. Did you leave that job and change your lifestyle?
Yeah, I did. I tried to complete drastic 180 and worked with him at a gym, try and like health it up.
Was that better?
Yeah, but it just didn't really work. I think there was a lot more internal things that was wrong that I needed to fix rather than just trying to change it from the outside, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I do know what you mean. And so going back to the actual first panic attack, you mentioned that there were some red flags that you could see in hindsight. Can you share what they were with me? I'm really curious to know what they were.
The funny thing is, and it's crazy because I'll come back to that just because after I was diagnosed properly, Jackie would always be like, okay, so what's happening now? You know, can you still get your wife's visa? We had trouble with visa. You know, how's Archie being born? How's the new job? How's the drinking? It was always steps on how to prevent stuff from happening. But we never went back in time. So to answer your question, I just had an interview for my podcast that I'm doing recently with a woman in the UK. And that conversation, she literally asked the same question. She went, can I ask what happened back then? And I said, my parents got divorced. We moved to Shanghai. It was weird. My brothers wouldn't talk to my parents, so they would call me every night. It was a daily conversation with my brothers about how they were just hating life. And my brother dropped out of school, and I was the kind of the bridge in between. And at the time, though, I thought divorce is a very common thing. This is not a reason for me to break down. And I didn't feel at the time like there was a big issue. And so Poppy, who I was having the interview at, and then she said, were you drinking a lot at the time? I was like, yeah. At that time, I kind of let loose. Dad was kind of on this mission to, you know, to work hard, play hard. Because he was like, I got no ties. And Dad made the most money he's ever made. But at the same time, he was having a party. So it was great. I was joining him. I was riding that wave. And Poppy goes, oh, you're so textbook. She goes, you are so textbook.
Yeah, so you can see that you were living a terrible lifestyle. You had family pressure. You had all these things going on that culminated in a panic attack. Tell me about anxiety. Did that manifest as well, or has that been in relation alongside the panic attacks?
Yeah, I would describe it as an anxiety. It's like a wet blanket on top of you that you're constantly just kind of fighting off. It doesn't hit you hard, but you're just constantly trying to fight it off. Some days it's good, some days it's not as good. Now, I think everyone has anxiety in life. Everyone has different levels of stress, you know, jobs, relationships, whatever it might be. You might have a heavier blanket that day, or sometimes it might not even be on. A panic attack is like just being hit by a bus really suddenly. I've got to notice now when anxiety is high, I'm definitely more susceptible to a panic attack.
Right, so they're interlinked a bit.
For sure.
What does anxiety feel like to you? Like, to me, it feels like someone standing on my chest. That's what it feels like to me. Yeah. In fact, when it first started for me, I was going off getting all these tests to see if I had lung issues, get my heart checked, all of that. And it's just like, And I did have some nodules and I'd had bronchitis and they found a heart murmur, which is actually innocent and it's fine. So I was kind of still looking for all these excuses. But then finally the doctor said, this is not making your chest hurt.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, it's anxiety.
Yep.
And the other thing that I've discovered, I've just stopped coffee a week ago. That's made a big difference.
Yeah.
That's really improved it because I was only drinking it for the last 2 years.
It's so funny you say that. It's exactly what I did. I said to Jackie, something's wrong with my heart. And he was checking it. He did everything. The annoying thing is he called me after and he said, Aaron, I think there might be something. Just go to the hospital and check it out. Eventually, we did all the tests and the doc was like, you're 100% healthy. Like, with your heart's fine. So yes, I totally get it. When you said that, I just can relate so much. And sometimes I get like sore stomach and that brings it up as well, like butterflies sometimes as well. But anxiety, like a lot of it can start if I have a bad sleep. Sleep's been key for me. So if I have a really bad sleep and I wake up, I'm already on the wrong foot. And I'm very disorganized as a human being.
Oh, really? I'm super organized.
I am so bad. So, yeah. So sometimes like I'll forget things that I needed to get done and that just adds on. We've had a lot of financial trouble as a family. Having Amy here, she hasn't been able to get a visa. She can't get a full-time job. So it's just been a single income for three of us for the last 3 years. So
that's pressure. Financial pressure can be one of the biggest strains on a marriage, can't it?
And especially in a city which it doesn't let up. So we've had to deal with that. And so there's times when I know that anxiety has been really bad. And then because I'm not organized, I don't have like my stuff set out for me of like what I need to attack. And because I don't have that set out, I just get lost and I'm just like, I'm just not going to do anything. And I just kind of get into that little spiral.
You get into that mindset of it's easier to sort of just put your head in the sand.
For sure. Yeah, 100%.
Does that then have a knock-on effect of making you feel more anxious because you're not achieving what you need to achieve?
Right.
Wow. So that's really difficult.
Yeah. So anxiety is just kind of a battle. I mean, that's the whole reason I'm starting this podcast, speaking to experts in different fields to how I get myself better.
Tell me a bit about your podcast. What's it called and when's it coming out?
Yeah, it's called Talking Mental. We're going to launch it January 10th. And it's basically about me trying to get to the bottom of my problems with anxiety and panic attacks. So I've decided that I was going to speak with experts in different fields to understand how I can improve my life to get to the bottom of what's going on. The reason I wanted to pick Poppy is I'd been working with this charity called Mind, and we're now partners, which is amazing. And they're so supportive. And Poppy was the first person I ever heard say, you can fully cure yourself from these problems. So that's when I was like, okay, I need to do this podcast.
And what's Poppy do? What's her role? Is she a psychologist?
She's a CEO. She does a lot of mental health work in the UK. Her background, yes, is in psychology. I think so. Psychology, psychiatry, something like that. But she's an amazing woman in what she's done for mental health. But she's also just very good at explaining it in layman's terms. Like she's so clear. It's like, oh, okay, I get it.
Was that super helpful for you and what you're dealing with just to talk to her?
Oh, incredible.
And what were your main takeaways from what she said?
What my issues were leading up to it.
Oh, okay.
And basically like, but it's good that you're finding out what your problems are and you should go and talk to people. So like on the podcast, one of the first things I wrote was like, I need to speak to an organizational expert. I need to speak to a nutritionist. I need to speak to a sleep therapist. I want to even speak to a sex therapist. Like I want to speak to everybody and anybody to do that. And then with Talking Mental, I want season 2, season 3 to be about other issues with mental health. Depression, recovering alcoholics. So just kind of having a backlog, a library really for people who are dealing with different types of mental health for them to have a listen and maybe get tips from different people, different experts about how they can improve their lives. And Talking Mental, we're running also a parallel podcast called Talking Mental With. And Talking Mental With is a once a month podcast where I talk to a kind of a higher profile guest or a roundtable discussion with people. And we're just going to be talking about mental health in general, not about my issues, but probably about theirs and what they're doing.
That sounds really great. So is your first series based on anxiety?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Season 1 will be my issues, anxiety and panic attacks.
Great.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. I think there's a lot of experts around and there's a lot of people that have got a lot of knowledge. And I think it's really brilliant that you're going to do something like this because there are so many people out there who suffer alone. Mm-hmm. And if we look at suicide rates for young men, they're very, very high from the age of about 18 to 25. Mm-hmm. Because I think within our society or Western society, there's a culture that men can't talk about these things and they can't ask for help and they can't seem vulnerable or weak or whatever it is, the label they want to give themselves. That's not me labeling them.
Yep.
What's your perception on masculinity and being able to talk about mental health issues?
Yeah, a couple of things. I think men, we have egos and stuff as well. So we kind of stand off until we can see some things. There's a couple of things. So for example, if I'm speaking to a couple of guys, they'll kind of sit back and wait until they can kind of see what I'm talking about, if I'm relatable enough. And then once they find that I'm relatable enough, and what I mean by relatable enough is I'm talking with them in a bar, something where I'm not doing it in a way where they're going to be like, oh, I don't want to talk to you right now. And having that kind of chat, which is relatable. And then after they see that and they're in that comfortable environment, it's surprising how much men will open up and go, actually, bro, like I'm having trouble with this, this, and this.
I think they want to talk, don't they? They don't have an outlet. I think that's something to do with the differences in the genders.
Correct.
Women really talk to each other and
women are so
very
supportive.
good. Yeah, and there's a lot of talk about emotions and how we're feeling and what we're experiencing. Where men, it's all more about the practical stuff. And
well, men, you're kind of waiting. You're waiting to see if you can relate. And then once you can relate, then you feel comfortable enough to do it. Whereas I found women are so supportive. Like the whole team with me helping me with Talking Mental was all female, because when I started talking about it, they were like, what do you need? Let me help you. I got you. And I'm like,
great.
Whoa, what's the support?
That's so cool.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And, but I kind of get it. I was researching a lot of like anxiety podcasts. And a lot of it is the same kind of crap where it's, hi, welcome to this anxiety podcast. We're here are the top 5 tips on how to deal with a panic attack. No guy's going to want to listen to that. I was the same. I was like, I don't want to listen to that. It's just not relatable from a male's perspective. I mean, not all males are the same. That's just coming from me and how I felt about it. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to create that tone, which was separate of what would attract me. So the first episode of my podcast is with 3 of my rugby mates. And we literally are in a bar with a beer talking about it. And I told them, like, boys, fire away any question that you would want to know. And I've been very lucky that I have, rugby mates who are like, they can still joke with me. They don't change their personality. And I think that's because I've set up a relationship with them where they know that I am relatable in that sense.
Did you find it easy to open up to your rugby buddies early on when you first had the panic attacks or anxiety, or did you hide it and were you nervous about what they might say or judgment?
It's funny. A lot of people have asked that question of, am I nervous about their judgment? It was never that I was nervous about the judgment. I was just nervous. I didn't want to talk about it because I didn't know enough. And the more I talked about it, it meant I had to describe what was going on. And it takes a long time, especially when you don't know how to describe it, of trying to describe it. And then it brings it back up. So for me, it was more about, I just don't want to talk about it because, look, I'm seeking help. I'm speaking to close people, but I just don't want to because it's going to take too long for me to do it. Now, after I realized that actually talking about it to everybody, including the rugby team, anyone, has actually helped me so much more. That's why I decided to do the podcast. I was like, actually, this helps. Every time I speak about it, it's a weight off.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? It really does help to be understood and you pick up tips and ideas and strategies and also to be validated that you're not going crazy.
Right.
This is a normal part of many people's lives. And I think that's the message we need to get across.
Oh, 100%. And almost 10 out of 10 other guys, they would either go, man, like, that's cool, like, and just give you a high five or a hug and then you just carry on. Or they would talk and go, man, actually, I've been having some issues. And I've had people talk to me about all of a sudden, their breakup with a girl, it's not been going so well and all this kind of stuff, and people say, oh, we would have never have guessed that, you had all these issues because you have some bringing energy. And I think people just think it's people who are very quiet and conservative that have these issues. And it
can be anybody. Yeah. And people can mask it, that, they can mask it quite well in their day-to-day life, can't they?
So it wasn't until the last year where I really started opening up to the rugby guys. And we were such a close group of boys anyway, that it wasn't a big issue for me to tell them. It was more about knowing what the issues were before talking about it. Because now I'm so comfortable about it that I'm like, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Whether
but
it's
in
a
the
short
beginning,
conversation
you didn't really, well, initially you didn't really even know what it was.
No idea.
Let alone what was triggering it or how best to deal with it.
Correct.
So I guess over 6 years, you've really been able to work through so much stuff that now that you can talk about it. And also it's great to hear that other guys are opening up to you about their stuff and they've got an outlet because there's so many men that don't have that. And I think that that's really brilliant.
And the rugby community in Hong Kong is doing a phenomenal job. They really are. It's such a supportive community.
In what way? What do you mean?
there's so many aspects, like the blue tie ball, which has just started a couple of years ago. That's all rugby. There's a rugby match. They fly rugby people over. I attended this year. They had Drew Mitchell, who's a Wallaby, come over and he was a guest speaker. There was so many people there, and the amount of people that donated and were there to support mental health was insane.
I didn't realize they were doing that. That's
it was
so
incredible.
Cool.
I can't even remember the amount of people that were there. I think it was over 1,000 people for sure. It's all in this rugby community. We played a rugby match beforehand where Drew Mitchell got to play in, and you know, it was just this incredible event, and it just doesn't stop there. I put out a few videos and stuff on Facebook, and other rugby teams started sharing it. And just recently, literally last week, I got a phone call from one of the guys from another club in our division. And he was like, man, I just watched Tyson Fury's interview on Joe Rogan when he started opening up about mental health. And he's like, I just thought I'd give you a call, see how you're doing. And I was like, bro, that's amazing.
That's really cool. That's great.
It's legitimate that people really care. And from small phone calls like that to these big events. And, you know, the national rugby side, the Hong Kong Rugby Union, are pushing it massively. You know, the captain of the Hong Kong national team, James, he was there at the mental health event. He's a good mate and he's always been supportive. So I've seen from the whole rugby community, from the top national levels down to in our division, and everyone's so supportive.
Isn't that great? So it's starting conversations that haven't happened before, isn't it? And so people can start to reach out and people can start to identify and relate to other people and recognize that they're not alone, because you do feel very alone, don't you, when you first get anxiety or a panic attack?
Alone. You feel so alone. You feel like you're the only person that's dealing with it, for sure. And it's, you know, it can be situational about where you are. Like I was in China, so no one knew how to talk about it, but you feel so alone. And I get it. There are times you just want to stay at home, don't want to come out.
Do you feel that you had any depression in relation to it, or is it just really just about anxiety and panic attacks?
Yeah, no, I haven't, to be honest. I mean, I don't know if it could have led to it or if it still can. I don't know. But no, I never felt that way. And I've spoken to a lot of people with depression, some people who are close to me, some people who are like that woman I was describing earlier. A lot of the stuff that they deal with is quite different. And the reason I haven't was I was very fortunate that I have a very supportive family that was there, and very open family from, you know, with any of these issues. So no, I don't think it has.
And how important do you think having friends that you can turn to, having this kind of support from the rugby club, having a family that is really supportive, what sort of impact does that have on you in dealing with this?
It's everything.
It's huge, isn't it?
It's literally everything. And it's as simple as not letting stuff build up to the point where you have these panic attacks. You know, that's the one thing that I'm really learning, is dealing with stresses and dealing with them, even though you think they're large or small.
What are some of the strategies that you use to deal with stress?
It's literally like having a great friend. So literally, like if I'm having a horrible day at work and I'm super hungover or whatever, and I'm having some anxiety and maybe feeling some onsets of panic attack, I'll message my mate. Have one of those friends that will literally call you. Be like, man, let's just chat. And we just end up chatting. And then you divert onto something else, which is like
you're distracted.
Something sports and something. And then after you hang up the phone, you're like, okay, that's good.
Feel better.
So little things like that is huge. That's why, you know, having friends and family is so supportive. And even just having them there when you don't want to talk and them going, you want to talk about it? You're like, no. And they're like, okay. And they'll leave you to almost when you're ready. But just knowing that they're there is everything. And it's a lot of problem within Hong Kong that a lot of people don't have that.
Yeah.
They don't have that support. So a lot of people with clinical depression in Hong Kong will just say, we just wished someone was around to talk. Not even that they have to talk, but that they were around to talk. And that's everything.
And I think that's part of culture, isn't it? That part of the Chinese culture, that you don't really necessarily talk about these things as freely as perhaps we do in Western culture.
Yeah, but I think as well, I think it happens everywhere.
Yeah,
you know, I think,
and even within men, you know, it's harder for men to talk than women. Yeah. So it can happen anywhere.
It happens everywhere. I mean, everyone has that thing. I think there are some truths to some issues in Hong Kong society which might lead to certain things, but everyone's different. Everyone's got different backgrounds. You know, everyone's just different.
We're such a diverse community. Yeah, everyone is different,
and you want to make sure that just dealing with those stresses, you want to make sure that you deal with them as they come. It's like saying physically, you don't wait until you're clinically obese before you go to the gym. Why would you wait? Some people who have a 2-week holiday go, I've just put on some holiday weight. I need to go like strict diet for 2 weeks. Everyone's always correcting those little hiccups as they go. Why does everyone wait till they're clinically depressed or they hit a massive panic attack before they realize that something's wrong?
Well, that was because there's a stigma associated with mental health issues. And that's why we're doing this, isn't there?
100%.
So do you do any yoga, meditation, anything to do with well-being, mindfulness, anything like that to deal with it?
And the amount of people that are like, do it. So again, another reason why I've done the podcast, meditation experts, everything, just so that I can try it. And I'm open-minded about it. You know, everyone's like, you should try it. You should try this. So we'll see. But no, I haven't. I haven't done any of that stuff before.
Have you cut your drinking down?
Yeah.
Has that made a difference?
Yes.
That's interesting. Why do you think that is?
I mean, drinking is not great for you at all.
And also, but is it linked with the lack of sleep and hangovers or?
Yeah. And I think it just does a lot of stuff which just harms the chemicals which are meant to be balanced in your brain. I don't want to sound scientific at all because I don't know, but I'm sure, you know, from whoever I speak to, it's just not good for you. But yeah, so alcohol for sure. I've cut it down, but there's still times I go out. You just feel horrible the next few days.
Can you share a story of a difference that you've made in somebody else's life by talking about this? Have you had anybody that has come to you and said, mate, because of you, I've done this, this, and this has happened?
No, not really. I mean, it's been quite a new journey, so I haven't. But what I have seen is just the amount of people that are willing to just come up and have a chat with you about it. I don't expect anyone to come and be like, yo, you've changed my life. I'm not really thinking about it that way. I haven't just thought about it. I'm just trying to use this platform as a way to help myself understand it and help other people who don't know how to speak or don't know what to ask, basically give them a platform to do it.
Some people said because of you or because of hearing your talk or because you've opened up, I've been able to open up about what I'm dealing with.
No, not yet. Not really.
Okay, but that might come through the podcast as well.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, there's been a lot of support. No one's really used the word because of what you've done, but a lot of people have said,
opening up.
Yeah. And so when I posted this video that we did on Facebook for this short film that I've been working with the charity here in Hong Kong.
Oh, what's that?
Mental Health Foundation. They want to set up this campaign to help locals understand how they can break the stigma. So they filmed a short film about my story and put it out. And there was a trailer that they've just finished editing. And the short film was almost done. It's about 6 or 7 minutes long. And I put the trailer up and basically kind of opened up for the first time and put it on Facebook. And I told my dad the next day, because this was just a few months ago, and I called my dad the next day and I said, it's different from having the idea of coming out and talking about it. And then it's a whole different ball game when you've done it and you see what happens. Because I couldn't believe the amount of messages I got privately from all around the world, from people I literally haven't spoken to since primary school. No one ever said because of you, but it was more about, man, awesome that you've done this. I'm here. Or, yo, I've been dealing with a lot of stuff. It's awesome that you're doing this. I'm here for you. Let's catch up soon.
And that has such a huge impact, doesn't it, on you?
Yeah, but it kind of made it scary because it was like, whoa, it's really letting people know that you've got an issue. And that's never just easy to do.
No, it takes a lot of courage.
But it's scary as hell.
Yeah, it is
scary. You don't
scary.
want to admit it. And it was also scary to think a lot of people are telling you about their issues.
Does that feel like a burden because you feel like you've got to try and help them?
No.
Okay.
Never felt like that. Never a burden. It was just made it real. It's very rare that you have that many conversations with people that you don't really see that often. Everything's surface level conversations.
Yes.
But imagine however many people messaging you, surface level relationships, telling you deep stuff. It's like, whoa, okay, this is real. And this is a topic that is not just to be messed around with. And hey, let's just put it out there. That's why I'm so focused and passionate about this project, because I don't want to mess around. It's not something to be messed around with. And I want to provide the value. But at the same time, I don't want to differ from not being myself. So it might rub people the wrong way, you know, the way I speak or the fact that I'm having a beer or this kind of conversation. But I don't want to look back and say I didn't do it the way I wanted to do it.
Be true to yourself.
Yeah. And I'm just hoping that people will like that.
And are you
at least take value from it.
I'm sure they will. I think it's a brilliant thing that you're doing. It's so important, I think, and especially because you're a guy. Yeah. I think that just adds that added layer to it.
Yeah.
But do you feel that the connections that you're forming with people are becoming deeper then because of these people sort of reaching out and connecting
100%.
with you? Isn't that nice?
100%.
Yeah,
for
that's
sure.
That's amazing, isn't it?
For sure. It's quite tiring. I don't want to say tiring, but it's full on. Because it's like, you know, when you go home from a normal day, if you're just hanging out, you kind of just, okay, well, let's watch a movie. But when everyone's kind of, you know, mentioned things to you, you care about people and you start thinking like, oh man, is there anything I can do to help? and you just take on a lot. So it's full on.
And does that add to your anxiety?
It hasn't so far.
Okay, that's great. That's probably because you're just naturally really passionate and dedicated to the cause.
Yeah. And it's something that I'm focused on. When there's something that I'm focused on, my anxiety's gone away a lot more. So when I'm playing sport, I'm focused. It's instinctual. Having my son, I'm so focused on him, you don't think about anything else. So I'm so focused on this. I'm kind of trying to separate it from the fact that it is anxiety and stuff. Because if I start thinking about it in that sense, I'm sure it's going to cause some anxiety for sure.
Whenever we stick our necks out, it does in some ways.
It will, yeah.
But I think the other interesting thing is the positive feedback you get can just be so magnificent that it can really push away any of that negativity. So that's quite nice. What advice would you give to somebody who's suffering from anxiety and hasn't done anything about it?
Suffering from anxiety or sort of having panic attacks?
Either.
First and foremost, I know this sounds so generic. Everyone says, go and speak to someone who's a professional. The reason I say that is because I actually think everyone should see a psychiatrist, whether you have any issues or not. Because the cool thing that I did with Jackie was I could speak about everything and nothing was judgmental. And once the conversation was done, that was it. I didn't have to carry that back home with the wife going 2 hours later, what did you mean by that when you said that? There's none of that. But it also gave me peace of mind because they can explain it in a scientific way. So it's like someone telling you you've torn your ACL. What does that mean? I don't know what that means. Oh, it means this. So you have to rehab like this. Once it makes sense to you, you know what to do and how to rehab yourself to get better. In that sense, that's why it's important. Reach out to your families, friends, get some friends that are helpful and supportive and speak out about it. But when you're going through panic attacks, only advice I can give you, you don't want to talk to anybody, is just try to get through it. And then once you get through it and when you feel up for it, go and speak to
get the help then.
Go and get the help. There's nothing you can do when you're going through the panic attack.
Is there? There's nothing like breathing or
nothing for me.
Relaxing. There's nothing. You just have to ride it.
It's so fight or flight that there's no rational thought. Let's put it that way. There was no rational thought. The only thing I could think of was when I'm having a panic attack, like get outside. So if you pass out or when you pass out, someone can see you and call an ambulance.
Have you ever passed out from
Haven't.
it? No, I haven't. You feel like you're going to because it's like you're having a heart attack.
Yeah. I mean, I would say this stuff doesn't come for no reason. There's some stresses. There are things. If you have some advice would be just go and talk about these certain things. Or if you feel like you're not being physically active and that's what's troubling you, go and do some physical activity.
And that's a good thing to do, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Do something physical. It's really good for your mental health.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
So there are so many different things you can go and do. But if you're really in the dark depths and you feel alone, 100% the first thing to do would be to go and speak to somebody.
Yeah, and there's helplines you can call. In Australia, Lifeline. In Hong Kong, there's the Samaritans. There are actual people that you can call from your own home. So that,
there's tons.
If you can't get out of your house, Mind's
great.
Headspace in Australia.
Yeah, Mind's great in Hong Kong because speaking from an expat, people that work there are really good at talking to you about it in a non sort of weirdy way. They just know it's like an everyday conversation. That is really relieving to hear. Like I can't express that enough. When you feel like you're having so much trouble and you can't explain something and then you hear someone explain what you're going through, it's such a relief and it just helps you open up more about what you're going through.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And there's another one called the OCD and Anxiety Support Group in Hong Kong with Manal Matani.
Yep.
So that's another one.
Just have some more self-awareness in yourself to be like, it's not a big deal that I go and speak to these people. Or reach out to one of the closest friends to be like, hey, can you help me do this? You have some more self-awareness in yourself and security in yourself that you can be like, it's okay. I'm just going to go and do this. And then because it's just always easier to not do it.
Taking that first step, that's the hardest part, isn't it? Once you actually get to the support network some way, then it becomes easier. It's just taking that initial step that's the hardest part.
And it's also like mentally, don't think about it in that sense. Like, are you embarrassed to go to the gym? Are you embarrassed to find a personal trainer? Everyone would applaud you for that.
Are you embarrassed to go to the doctor to get your physical health checked? No.
Yeah, exactly. If you're overweight and you go to, hey, I'm going to get on it. I'm going to go see. And why are you seeing a personal trainer? You're seeing an expert who understands it and can explain it to you and get you to where you are based on your body type, based on your history. It's the same thing. You speak to a personal trainer and they say, someone who's trying to lose 20 kilos, you have two people trying to lose 20 kilos, one's 65, one's 30. You're not going to put them through the same thing.
You adjust it to suit the situation.
Them,
yeah,
right?
That's right.
One's going to work out at night because he's busy through the day. One's going to work out in the morning because he's busy at night. Like everyone's different. So I think that's the key. You got to just think about it in that sense.
And there's some stigma associated with taking medication for mental health issues as well, isn't there? And I think one of the analogies that I often use is that if you had diabetes, you would take the insulin.
Sure.
So if you have a mental health issue and your doctor recommends medication, why would you be resistant to take it if it's going to make you feel better?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of fear about a lot of people putting you in medication just to sedate you. You hear that a lot in Hong Kong. I've heard some horror stories of people who struggle, but they've just given them medication that literally tires them so much, but it stops them from having any issues. But they just not even themselves. They can't even immerse themselves into society. So I understand there's a fear of it, which I totally understand. So
it's about
what's good?
Finding the right doctor.
Exactly.
It
What's
really
good medicine? What's not good medicine?
Yeah.
So actually, I didn't even think about putting this on an episode until mine said, get a drug expert on. And I was like, got to. So now we do.
Yeah, that's great because often anxiety is not treated with anxiety medication, but it's treated with antidepressants.
Right.
And the antidepressants they don't mong you out.
Right.
They don't make you feel tired and sleepy. And they're not as addictive and they actually just lift your mood over time. So you worry less and then you feel less anxious. So that's actually a very common way that anxiety is treated with antidepressants. Totally. But people think they're going to be put on anti-anxiety medication, which isn't necessarily what a doctor will do.
Right. I mean, I was very fortunate again to have such a family friend who gave me the medicine and he said, look, we don't want to be reliant on it, but this is basically what it's going to do for you. And I was like, any side effects and stuff like that? And he's like, nope, but we can just track it. And he would WhatsApp me, how you feeling? And literally, there was no side effects.
That's great. And quite often the anti-anxiety medication is given for the panic attack. So it can help you in that extreme fight or flight moment. But for the anxiety, it's normally the antidepressants and just lifting the mood over time.
And it's having that conversation to go, even though you're on the medication, let's still work on things to help prevent it. And, or if it happens again, how to deal with it. So there's honestly now, from where I was before, the panic attacks in my first year were horrendous because I didn't know what was going on. And they would last forever because I'd think, oh, there's a problem now. Oh, it's even worse. I would just spiral. Now there's been times where it's not often anymore, but there are times where I can feel it really coming on and it's about to hit, but I just know. And because I'm so much more knowledgeable on what it's happening and why it's happening, it's so much easier to nip it in the bud.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So you didn't really know for a whole year what was actually going on. Yeah. Oh, that must have been a scary year.
It was the worst. Yeah, it was the worst.
I can imagine.
It was the worst. Yeah.
Oh, I feel for you. Oh, my God. But anyway, thank God you got it sorted.
But that's why it's so important. So no one has to do this again.
I know.
If I had Jackie from day one.
Totally different story for that first year. It's so interesting. Yesterday, I told her about your podcast, so she's going to be listening to this. But yesterday, this woman messaged me on Facebook. I don't know her, but she had just seen that I'd made a couple of comments about mental health professionals on Hong Kong Mums. So she reached out to me because her husband has depression and she was worried about him because he wants to come off his medication. And we just had a chat and I just talked about, I know the doctor that she's seeing through my work and I think that she's amazing. And she just was like, thank you so much. I don't have anyone to talk to about this. You've really helped just by listening to me. How important do you think it is just to listen to somebody?
It's very important that you listen, but I mean like really listen and care. Like I think there's a lot of people that would just be like, how you doing? And then you'll say a few things and then that's it. But I mean like actually listen. And what I mean by that is you can tell when someone's really listening because they're trying to give you constructive feedback or they're trying to say something that can actually attack the problem. For people who really listen, that's helped. So like I said before, I had that mate of mine who calls me. We literally talk about it. And it can be about anything, relationships, problems, everything. But we talk about it and he actually listens and maybe can give me a different point of view that I wasn't thinking about. And it's like, oh, having someone like that is huge.
It really can relieve the stress, can't it? Just to get things off your chest and have somebody really listening, validating you, responding, giving you some tips or ideas makes a massive difference.
That's why I think everyone should see a psychiatrist. How great is it if I had so much trouble with my wife, and I get to speak to this guy and I'm just ranting and raving. And he's like, yeah, he might agree with you. Like, oh yeah. Or he might be like, try this. And you get it all off your chest and you go home and then you're like, oh.
Yeah, feel much better. And also psychologist or counselor, not just psychiatrists, but psychiatrists, psychologists, counselors, life coaches. There's lots of different methods where you can get that kind of support.
100%.
And I've been to many therapists and I had life coaching throughout my life. And it's such a good thing to do. It's so good for the soul.
And sometimes it's better to have conversations with them than your friends, because even if your friends are there to support you, sometimes it can be very tiring, and maybe they're going through their own thing and they don't want to talk about it and they just want to relax and chill. So I think it's great to have an outlet where you don't have to worry about anything. You literally can just say what you want. There's no judgment. No one's going to know about the conversation. And then afterwards, you just go back and live your life again. Catch it with your friends, go and catch a movie.
Yeah.
Great.
It is. It's really good. Aaron, what do you hope to achieve with your podcast?
First of all, help myself get better, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was my initial, that's what I want. This, was the kind of the reason. It was like the perfect storm where I could go, don't have enough money to go and see all these people. Let's start a podcast where I can, let's go and start a podcast where I'll be getting these resources for free.
Brilliant.
And can speak to them there.
Brilliant. That's great.
So that was the initial idea. But after hearing a lot of, my biggest thing is I just hope that I can represent people and ask questions that people would like to ask, and do it through a way where I can give people the hope. So I want to have an ending to season 1. And I want people to say like, oh, he went and saw all these people and then he got better. Oh, wow. Okay, so there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Great. Maybe I should listen to it. Maybe there's questions that someone is wanting to ask a nutritionist but doesn't have access to one.
Yes, because they are so expensive.
They are expensive.
Many people can't go and see
100%.
these people. Yeah, so you're providing a service for other people as well.
Exactly. So
and it's almost accidentally by helping yourself, you're helping others, which is nice.
Exactly. And speaking to a psychiatrist, and they might go, you should try this, this, and this. And then I can give that information on the website and people can try it. What I want for the future is I want an open dialogue with people. So if people want to ask questions, or like, let's say, hey, I'm interviewing a sleep therapist on Sunday.
Send me your questions on Facebook.
Yeah, I'll ask them.
That's a brilliant idea. How many interviews have you done so far?
4.
Great. So, yeah, that's brilliant. So I wish you great luck with it. I hope it goes amazing. Really, really well.
Yeah.
And I just want to ask you, what are your goals and your dreams for the future?
Goals and dreams for the future. Man, that's a tough one. I love hosting. I love emceeing and doing things like that.
I can see you'd be amazing at it. You'd be so good.
It's just what I love doing, and it's tough to do it in Hong Kong. It's a tough industry to do anyway. I'd love to be doing stuff like that full time. And I remember someone always told me that to be a host is literally just to be a personality and be your own personality. And I was like, that sounds like the greatest job ever. All you gotta do is just be yourself. And if people like it, they do. Then if they don't, switch to another channel, I guess. So I would love to do that. On a personal level, would love to get our family in a more stable environment. And what I mean by that is financially, we can do things where we can start saving and, having a second kid and making sure that the family is healthy. And that's what I really care about. And just, from a personal perspective, just having more fun, man. Just want to just bring some energy and just have fun. And even though it's a topic that's difficult and sensitive to talk about, just do it in a fun way. I don't want my personality to change off that. So just have fun. I want the family to be happy, create more memories with them, have them stable, and do more stuff that I love.
Aaron, if people want to get in touch with you to be on your podcast, to find out more about anxiety and panic attacks, or to get you to host an event, how can they get in touch with you?
Come to talkingmental.com and you can find everything through there. We'll have all our Instagram and Facebook. It's all that you can just search through Talking Mental. We want to open a dialogue with people. So there's, I think on every page of the website, I made sure that there's literally like a ask me something. And we have an email that's everybody@talkingmental.com. So if anybody and everybody wants to get in touch, whatever it might be, get in touch that way. You can just get in touch. I'm easy to get in touch with. You can search for me on Instagram or whatever you want.
And you're also open to going into schools and talking about mental health issues as well, aren't you? Which is a really good thing. Massively. Because young people need to get an understanding that it's okay to ask others, are you okay?
For sure.
And it's okay to ask for help if you need it.
Yeah, potentially maybe doing something in the Australian school as well.
Great.
So we'll see. I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there, and it's just about getting people to chat about it in a way where they don't feel that stigma.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Aaron, thank you so much for meeting with me today. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm so excited and honoured to have you on my podcast, and I'm really looking forward to listening to yours. And we can do a promo swap.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
You're
let's
amazing.
Do it. Okay.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Cool. Thanks, Aaron. See ya. Take care. Hi, Confidants. I want to tell you about my Patreon page. I've joined Patreon in the hope of getting sponsorship for my Hong Kong Confidential podcast. Patreon is a great way for my listeners to get on board and sponsor me with monthly payments, and that goes towards my production costs and rewards for my members. If you're interested in checking out my Patreon page, please go to patreon.com and search up Jules Hannaford or Hong Kong Confidential. I would really appreciate you visiting my page. So that brings us to the end of another Hong Kong Confidential podcast. I'm Jules Hannaford. Thanks for joining me, and I hope you'll be with me again next week. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please can you go to iTunes to rate and review it. I would really appreciate your feedback. You can email me at jules@hongkongconfidential.net, and you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Hong Kong Confidential. If you'd like to hit me up on Twitter, it's at Jules Hannaford. I would love to hear from you.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.